In this video, I'm going to cover the basic functionality around Creative Studio. So there are a lot of things you can do with Creative Studio, but in this one, we're going to look at primarily going in, taking a look at the templates, how all that works, how you can select a template, either a print-based template or an eCard-based one, and make modifications to it, add your listing data to it, and ultimately either save it, print it, or send it out to your customers. We're going to have a follow-up video that then covers the more advanced functionality when it comes to maybe creating your own print designs or some of the more in-depth things you can do when it comes to modifying these. So, to get to Creative Studio, we're going to go over here to Marketing and then down to Creative Studio. And now this interface looks much like the current Ecards and Flyers one. So if you are familiar with that one, this should look very familiar to you. Otherwise, the way this is set up is you have some filters up here at the top that let you filter what templates are visible down here. And then once you find the template you want, you just click on it, and that takes you into the editor where you can modify it, add your listing information to it, and then do with it whatever you choose. So first off, under View Type, we have options up here at the top that are basically all related to print pieces. Even these social media ones, so everything under flyer, postcard, door hanger, and even social media is kind of considered a print piece by the editor. Now, all of these can be sent as an email if you want to. Also, all of these can be shared with social media if you want to, but the social media post types just have a canvas size that is a little bit more conducive to that kind of sharing, as opposed to being a full, 8.5 by 11 flyer. And then we have Other, which is just kind of a catch-all for all of the non-standard size designs that are in here. Now you can still print those out or share them on social media or do whatever you'd like with them, but they don't fit cleanly into one of these specified sizes. Now next we have the category drop-down that will let you choose from all the different eCard and flyer categories we have in here. And just narrows the results down based on your selection. And then next we have the keywords field, so you can search for templates by keyword, or if you do know the template ID, which would just be this number here in most cases, you can type that ID in and you can find a specific template that way. And then up here we have all of the options that are related to the eCard system that are kind of carried over, well, mostly ones that are carried over from the eCards and Flyers system. So first we have eCard history. If I click on that, that is going to load up a page that gives me all the eCards that I've generated, that I've saved, and that I've sent out, along with sent, opened, and click-through metrics on those, just like the eCard system had. And then if we go back to Creative Studio, up here we have the automation wizard, which again, this works exactly like the eCard and Flyer one. We just select our automation type, and basically that defines what trigger this is looking for. And then once we've activated it, it will use the settings in that particular post type to send out an eCard. So for this, like I've chosen new listing, so the trigger it's watching for is a new listing coming into our system that belongs to you. And then if you have this turned on, you would just switch enabled to on. It'll wait the number of days you have here, and then it will send out an eCard to everyone that is in any groups you have selected here. So if I select all marketing customers, for example, that's who it'll send to. And then the email that goes out will have the subject line that I can customize here, and it will use the template that I select down here. It'll just take that template, so if I use this one for example, it'll take that template and fill in all of my new listings information onto it, and then send it out to all the recipients in the groups I have selected. And then I can have a little custom message on that also. So that is how that would work for new listings, and that is really how it works for every category. It just works off of different triggers, and some categories have some options specific to that category. So for example, I go down here to birthday. Now the trigger on this one is the birth date of the people that are in the groups I have selected here. And then on their birthday, it'll send out the template I have selected with a little happy birthday message that I specify, subject line I specify. It can wait, well in this case it really doesn't wait, it'll send before their birthday, and you're specifying the number of days before. It wouldn't make as much sense if you specified the number of days after their birthday to send it out, but so that's what we went with before on that one. And then you can also include the spouse on these. So if you have some customer accounts in the groups you have selected here that do have some spouses attached to them that have their own birth dates, you can include those, and then not only will it send a birthday card to the primary contact, but it'll send it to their spouse when their birthday comes up also. So that's kind of nice. And then you can see all the different categories we have here. You can look at different birth dates, you can look at homeowner anniversaries, or specific holidays, even pet birthday, which is kind of a fun one. And then we have templates specific to each of those categories. All right, so we'll move back over to Creative Studio. Now the next item we have here is settings. So this lets me select the default company logo that I want to use on these designs. You can change them in the design itself in most cases, but if there's one that you want to use by default, just starting out when you load all those up for the first time, this is where you can define that. And then next we have this download button. We'll go over that a bit more in the advanced functionality, but if you are using a third-party system like InDesign to build out those templates, this will download a file that lets you put the data fields into that program so that you can build out the template completely and connect all the data fields for listing data and things to show up on these templates in the right spots, and then import it into this system. And then lastly, we have a folder open button. So this shows you all of the different folders that are available to you. So these are basically folders with files in them that you've saved in here before, and any templates that you've saved in here before, so that you can load those up directly. So if you've created your own custom template, for example, or you took an existing template and you modified it and resaved it, that can show up in here also. So you can just click on opened and then open that one again instead of going through all the templates down below. So there we go. So for this one, like I said, we're just going to focus on the basic functionality here. So I'm just going to go down and select a print template, and we'll go from there. So you can see as I scroll down, we've got most of the templates that were in the old system have been kind of ported over to this one. So you should see a lot of familiar templates here if you're familiar with that one. But we'll go with this guy. So if I click on that one, we see it loads up here in the print editor. And now I can start adding information to this and modifying it as I see fit and then sending it out. So here we are, and I'll scroll up a bit. Now generally what you'll do is select your template. Now we're going to find a listing. Now all of your listings, if you have any, will be pre-populated here, but then you can just type an address up here to pull up any listing that we have data for, or that we have data for connected to your system. And then I'm just going to click our data link button right here, and you can see that it adds all of that listings data to the template. So it fills in the description, fills in all the photos, pricing information, everything just loads up as it should. Now if I don't like some of the photos here, I want to change anything out, I can click on the address up here, and then that gives me all of the photos, or really 6 of the photos, and then see more gives me the rest. But that gives me all of the photos related to this property, and now I can just go through and drag them into my design where I want them, if I want to switch out any of the photos in the design. I like fireplaces, we'll make that the main one. Who doesn't love a good fireplace? So there you go. Now if I want to modify anything specific on this template, so if I go down and let's say that I don't like this text, I can just click on it and you can see that it loads up my font editor over here. So we have our context options up here, so those change based on what I have selected. But if I select text, it loads up my text options, which lets me control alignment just right up here from the top, or I can do that over here. There's just a shortcut so that you can quickly change alignment. These are my font properties, which are already loaded here, and that allows me to change the font. When I do change the font, if I wanted to change the font of everything, I can go here and I can actually select that font and then apply to all, and it changes the font throughout the entire design. So that is kind of a nice shortcut there. I can control font size, color, line height, so I have a lot of controls as to how I can go about customizing that text. Now if I wish to actually just change the text, the easiest way, I can just double click in here, and you can see my cursor is over there now, and I can add some more text, just like that. Now I can also modify that over here if I'd like, just whichever is more convenient to you. So there you go. Now I'll scroll down to the bottom. Now we'll notice that I have a couple of text issues. So all these templates were designed with kind of a best guess for how big fields would be, but I've got a pretty serious last name, and this is a pretty long domain name, so you can see it ended up being longer than the allotted amount of space we gave it. So in this case, I just want to make it smaller, so I'll just click on it. That opened my font properties automatically. So I'm going to go down here, we'll shrink it down a bit. There we go, looks like I get down to 26, it doesn't wrap anymore. So now we'll select the one above it, just make it match. And there we go. So now that fixed that up, and now we've got a template that's looking pretty good. Now the other things you can do here is I can click on agents, and you can see it loads up my agent information. If I would like to add more of my information into this design, I can just click on my name here, and then I come up with these data fields that are related to my account specifically. So I can add my designations in here if I want to, just by dragging them into the design. So I have a lot of options there. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. Or if I had multiple photos, I could even select from my multiple photos here and drag those in too. So I have a lot of options to change out some of that data. And then under text, you see we have a few different options for text. Text lets me type out whatever I'd like and just drag that in there. I have text related to the company specifically. So the nice thing about using this and dragging this in is that it's dynamic. So if I drag in the company name, which is white so you can't see it, there we go. So if I drag in the company domain name, or actually this is company name, the way this is set up, if the company were to change their name and I were to pull this design up later on, this is actually connected to that company name data, so it would change automatically for me in the design. So that's kind of nice. So we'll get rid of that. And then if I have any testimonials in the system, I can select testimonials there and I would be able to drag those in. And then if there are any blog articles that I had, I would be able to bring those up and drag in little blog article snippets as well. So there you have it. That is how you get your design all set up. Now just to run through the additional context options up here, we went through all of the main ones. Or I shouldn't say that. We went through the ones that were specific to text options, and the photo ones you can see in easy mode. There are no additional options up there, though if we switch to advanced, there's a lot of additional options. So we'll take a look at those in the advanced video. But for the options that do show up under here, we have a undo and a redo button, and you'll note what is particularly useful for me anyway is the fact that when I hover over them it tells me what they are, so you don't have to keep these memorized or anything. So we have undo and redo. We have the ability to bring forward, send backward, or bring all the way to the front, or push all the way to the back. Now that's particularly useful in this kind of print design because it's really based a lot on layering. So I can take this photo and I can push it backwards. Well, I can't push it much further backwards than it is, but I can push it forward and you can see how it starts, like certain elements start disappearing, and that's because I'm putting this picture on top of them. And then if I click back, you can see how they start reappearing again. Or with one click I can bring it all the way to the front so everything's behind it, or all the way to the back so everything's in front of it. So those are some nice shortcuts there. The next thing I can do is I can just use this delete button. I can either press delete on my keyboard, or I can click this to delete the element. Or I can use this link functionality to turn this element into a link. So if I do that, I would just put a URL in here, or paste one in, and hit apply. And then if I were to send this design out as an e-card, this would actually be a clickable section within it. So the customer could click on that and it would follow through to whatever link I created. So there you go. Now the next thing we can do once we have our design all set up to go, we're going to go up here and click on either download, which lets me just download this design. So you can see I click download, I can select what format I want it in, and then just click download, and then I'll have that. Or I can click on share and send. Now here, I have the ability to send it out as an e-card. So when this loads up, there we go. So I can click on customers, and then that'll take me to that same customer selection or group selection interface from the old e-card system, and we'll take a closer look at that later. But it'll take me into that, and then I can select my recipients and hit send, and this will send out as an e-card. Because it is built to be a print design, it is meant for, well, it renders out my design as an image. So what's significant about that is that whatever the customer gets will look exactly like what I have here in the editor. So that is the big benefit to those. The downside is because it is actually an image, it's not dynamic at all. So if it loads up on a mobile device where it has to be in a particularly small window, it's not going to reformat itself to do things like making the text bigger or move things around to make them more viewable on mobile. So you can definitely send these as an e-card, and they absolutely support that, but just keep that in mind when you send them out this way. Now, a regular e-card design, the drawback is that from one device to the next, it might not look like exactly what you saw in the editor. I mean, it should be real close, but it might not always look exactly right, or exactly identical, I should say. But it does have the ability to format itself for different devices and different display sizes so that it fits best and is as readable as it can be on that device. So the next thing I can do here is if I click on email, that'll open up my email client on my machine and send out a link to this e-card that the customer could click to view it basically on my website or in their web browser. And then I can use these tweet share, Facebook share, and LinkedIn share buttons to share these out with social media. So Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And clicking on any of those will just open up the interface where I'll need to log into my account there if I'm not already logged in, and then just set up a post like I would normally. Now, the next thing I can do here is I can send myself a preview of this via email. So if I do want to send it as an e-card, I can put in my email address and send preview to get a quick preview of that. And then I also have the same download interface here that I have if I just click download. So there you go. That is how I would send these out. So that is how you set up and send out a print template from the Creative Studio. So let's jump back into Creative Studio and take a look at an e-card template. There we go. So for this one, I'm going to go to View Type and just down to e-card, and that's going to show me the e-card designs. There we go. Now you can see the e-card designs look a little bit different. It has to do with the way we build these currently. So the thumbnails load up with just representations of listing images. So you just kind of have to use your imagination a little with these themes to see what they'll look like with listing information in them. But I'll go ahead and select this one. And now you can see that it loads up an e-card editor that, again, if you're familiar with our e-cards and flyers system, this should be very familiar to you. So from here, I'm just going to select some listings. Now, if I had listings, they would be here in this list already. Since I don't, I'm going to type in an MLS ID, and you can see it pops it in. Now, this is a multi-listing e-card, so let's put in another one. There we go. We're on a roll. Let's put in another one. Why not? And there we go. So you see each time I select one, it just drops it right in line in this section with the matching formatting. Now we have the agent section down here. It will be pre-populated with your information, but if you did want to put another agent's information in there, you could just type their name here. It'll bring them up, and then it populates with their information instead. Now, if this were a multi-agent e-card design as well, I would be able to keep adding people here. It wouldn't replace them. It would just kind of stack them on top of each other, however that card is designed. So there we go. I'm back. So that is how you populate the data. And then once you have it populated the way you want, just like the current e-card and flyer system, as I scroll down, you can see that certain fields will highlight like this. And any field that does is a customizable field. So if I click on sold here, because I don't like that, there we go. So I can type that out as whatever I want. And then I also have the additional options here to change the formatting a little bit, make it bold, change the font size. So I do have some options to kind of customize that further. Now once I've gone through and edited all the fields that I choose to, we can go down and send ourselves a preview, just like in the print side. I would just click on Send Preview, put in an email address and hit Send, and then I'll get that preview. I can save it so that I can pull it up later on if I'm not done with it, or if I want to use this as a template and reuse it, assuming that I made some changes to it like that. And then lastly, I can click on Send, and that will take me through to a very similar interface to what the print one looks like. So I have the same options here that do exactly the same thing, but this time we'll click on Customers, and you can see it takes me to this eCard Customer Send interface, which is the same thing that we have up for the eCards and flyer system. So from here, I can customize the subject, select from my groups, or actually I could do any combination of these things, or I can put in some email addresses over here if I want to just send it to some customers directly based on email address. And then lastly, if I want to push out the date a little bit, I can. The only suggestion that I have there is that you don't want to push this out a long ways, because when you click send is when it kind of builds up the recipient list for this. So at that point it's queued. So if you told this to go to all marketing customers and said send it out in 2 months, if I get any new customers added to that group between now and the time this sends, they won't receive it. Only those that are in that group now will receive it when it actually sends. So it's a good idea to use this to send out, maybe as much as a week ahead of time, but I wouldn't go much further than that. So there you go. Once you have your recipient set up, you'll click send, and then off it goes. So there you have it. That is the basic functionality behind Creative Studio. If you're interested in the more advanced functionality or what you can do as far as creating your own print templates and some of the other things that the system can do, go ahead and watch our advanced video for Creative Studio as well.